Enjoy a seat at the table and good company, where great conversations and meaningful discussions happen.
Welcome to And Good Company. I'm Sarah Fiedelholz. We all know a great dinner party isn't really about the food. It's about the people seated around the table engaging in lively discussions. And Good Company gives you a seat at the table to enjoy smart and engaging conversations as they happen. I am very pleased to be in the company of Kristin Giant, who is the founder of Hyperlocal Impact and has recently taken on the position of the Chief Growth Officer of Pond. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
So I'm really excited that you're here for several reasons, but you and I have talked and tried to connect over the last 2.5 years, and I have sort of followed you and read everything, LinkedIn and Facebook and whatnot. And when I was thinking about it and really trying to begin to prepare and plan for this, I really was thinking about that you are a perfect example where someone's last name is really exemplifies who they are. And for you, I think it's a blessing and a curse. So your last name is Giant, and you really have decided that your path is to take on these Herculean issues that, to me, some of them we have been dealing with and trying to solve since the dawn of time. And you have, put yourself really front and center, and it's like the Sisyphus who pushes the boulder up the hill. And I also felt that you also put a giant amount of pressure and expectations on your own shoulders. Yeah. And I just think that so I said it's a blessing and a curse. So I'm curious if you have you continued to be, you're on a journey of also being very introspective, and I'm wondering if you really thought about that.
Yeah, well, I gained the last name when I was in my mid-20s. I was Kristin Abbott before, which ironically, an abbot is like the head monk. So maybe this like peaceful, quiet person in a monastery. And then I moved from Abbott to Giant. And I've loved it. It was one of the first things that I knew about my husband was that his last name was Giant. And one of the first things I said about my husband to my girlfriend was, well, that's going to be my last name one day because I'm going to marry him. And I did, and I don't know, I think that the name matters, and it's fun. I love conversation, and I love having a novelty last name because it's a better icebreaker than the weather, frankly, right?
Wow,
your last name's Giant.
Do you have any jokes, or what's your icebreaker?
Other people do, because it's always like, I have, Kristin Abbott on the line, and she's a giant in the community, and all of those sorts of things. But I've been this way since before my last name was Giant. Mm-hmm. And I'd say the only thing that I feel like is a curse with it is that it's not always true that I'm a giant in a field that I'm working on, or that that I live up to the joke about being this magnet, like being a person of that level of magnitude. For the most part, I'm just kind of Kristin.
I wouldn't say that I feel that you're a person of that. The expectation is of that magnitude. I just feel that you are sort of in the story, the Jolly Green Giant and the little boy, and the giant is the issues, and you are determined you are going to climb to the top and really work to solve these issues. And you've done that since, when you became an attorney, and then with Hyperlocal, and then when you did the Friends and Family Stronger Together. And you really...
I will say that is related to my last name because my husband is a person of unbelievable integrity and unbelievable excellence and limitless hard work. And if you would have met me pre-Joe, I was terribly delightful. I'm not saying I wasn't a fun person to be around, but I really struggled with mediocrity. I struggled with, being a naturally gifted person and letting that sort of be enough. And Joe,
you were naturally gifted in music, correct?
That was my background, but also, tests came easily for me, academics came easily for me, sports, not so much. But this idea that like that was just enough. I didn't also need to work hard. And Joe Giant has really helped me learn how to work hard, which I don't think I would have tackled the issues that I think that I want to tackle if I didn't believe in my ability to follow through and my ability to do hard things. It's much easier to not do hard things.
Right. and you do hard things, and you went to law school and you started Hyper Local, which was really looking at a different way to look at philanthropy and profits and economics. But really also, but there's an underlying or sort of like a blanket over everything, which is that you really have struggled with mental health. And you're very open and forthright about it, and you write about it on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you people who interview you. So I'm really interested, first of all, in how has that impacted you wanting to be a giant in this, taking on these Herculean issues, and also why do you put so much out there?
Yeah, I am so well loved. I'm so well loved. It's the greatest gift of my life. My parents, my siblings, my spouse, my friends, and
your children.
My children. I'm too well loved by my children.
And how old are they now?
2 and 4.
Oh, the best ages.
Sure.
I know you and I have talked about this.
No, you're right. I mean, talk about a reason. And they do. They are literally obsessed with me. They would like crawl back in and be among me if they could. And I love that.
But at times you need, you want.
It's nice to be here with you.
Right.
Just
exactly.
you.
Right.
Really nice.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that I frame it that way, a lot of people who struggle in today's world can ascribe their struggle to situations. Underemployed. Overemployed, right? You have to work 150 hours a week and you don't have any time for yourselves.
Or you have to work 150 hours a week just to put food on the table.
You have to work 3 jobs.
Right.
You don't have a car. You have medical issues. And I think the putting the burden for sharing about mental health on people who couldn't possibly extrapolate their situation from their mental health is so unfair. And often what happens, right? It happens that it's when you hit a wall that people find out that you were struggling. Or for many mothers, it's when you come out of a 2-year postpartum depression haze that you realize you were struggling. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I've been in therapy for a lot of my life. I have some of these tools to talk about it, and I am so very confident that it's not situational because my life is wonderful.
Well, clearly, you and I talk. I absolutely believe that certain mental health issues are not situational. I mean, that's that whole nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
I believe they are nature. I mean, your chemistry and makeup of your brain, and even now, like I did like genetic testing where they swapped to see what kinds of medication work best for you based on how your body and brain metabolizes. And I mean, in the early 80s when they really created Prozac, which is when they really changed all of mental health, because besides that, they really were just having like really lithium and dealing with bipolar and not this sort of underlying depression or anxiety or so I think that also changed it, that they started to really identify where in the brain or the chemistry or what's happening. So I absolutely believe that I would say 98% of it is genetic. Yeah. And then I think 2% of it can be, situational.
And a part of, I think, the narrative, especially in business, is maybe people believe that, but their actions are the opposite, right? Their actions are bootstrap mentality. That sure, you're sad, sure, you're depressed, sure, you're anxious, get over it.
Right.
And I mean, if you look back, in my social presence when I was working for other people, I was nowhere near as outspoken about my mental health, in part because, so what happens, right? I share something like, everything is okay. I am not planning or contemplating suicide. And the void has been calling to me. This is an exact post that
I know. I responded to.
Yes. Right. So the void is calling, and what that looks like for me is A, B, C, and D.
Right.
And how I deal with it is XYZ.
Right.
And I do that. Now, here's what happens. Okay, so we have people that are concerned, and I appreciate. And so,
Right, I said
for reference, Sarah reached out, even though this is our first time really meeting in person,
right.
to several people in my circle, which is the right thing to do when you see the word suicide. What happens on the other side of that is I have people that are like, "Is this my fault?" So
they think it's their fault.
You think about the people in your immediate circle, right? Have I not done enough? Am I the reason you're sad? Am I the reason you're anxious? Which is a very natural response for someone who doesn't struggle with the chemical side of it. Yeah, I do.
Because, well, I mean, this goes to
Is it an appropriate response?
No,
Maybe
no,
not.
because it goes to a whole other thing that I'm working on, which is looking at the idea of happiness. And but no, because I think that they can't make you anything.
Right.
I mean, and you can only can control your response to somebody. So I would say that personally, I would think that's a little narcissistic.
Well, it is, but we live in a narcissistic society.
Well, that's part of our whole
problem.
problem.
And that's another piece of why I wouldn't have been as outspoken about it a year ago. Because if you say the void is calling, what does the marketing director for the corporation you work for think about that being public?
Right.
Okay, if most people that aren't actively in therapy and actively in treatment for mental illness think that if you're sad, it must be because someone's causing it, where do you spend 40 hours a week at your job? So I'm going to draw a conclusion that your depression has something to do with your boss or something to do with your field of work.
Right.
Which, of course, it both does and doesn't.
Well,
right?
okay. So I'm going to admit, when I would read some of these posts and stuff, and I, besides being concerned for you, in your personal, I will admit that I thought, like, is someone sort of also telling, because like maybe she's sharing a little too much? Because my thinking, this is how I felt. So hyper local impact, is a way you were going to take money, or even with the Together We're Stronger, people were going to give you money. And even though for Together Stronger you have a donor fund, but hyper local impact, you were really going to get a group of investors, and they were going to give you money, and you were going to do work on creating these programs. And I want to talk specifically about one that you were very successful at. But so my thinking was, is she hurting herself in the sense that people will think, well, if she's not mentally stable, whatever, they're not going to give her, they wouldn't give you money. Like, and I really did, I said to someone, I said, I don't know her well enough to say this to her, but is someone also saying to her that maybe she just needs to be wary because of the fact that people are going to, if they're giving you their money, whatever, they're going to be like, they want to know you're stable, you're going to be there. So that was my first sort of reaction. But what I just wanted to do was just let you know and say to you, you might want to think about this. And then you can make that decision.
Well, and what's, I think, incredible about that, and one of the reasons that I do what I do, truly, is because how many people are not in an economic position to say what I say, how I say it. And it's not that I'm rich. It's not that I have a trust fund. It's that I have clients that secure my future, that know me, that know my level of reliability, that know that I can do what I say I'm going to do, whether I'm in a depression or maybe a manic episode or somewhere in between.
Right.
They know, and what I'm not trying to do, and this is very important, and this is urgently important for who I am and for the people that I work with. I do not ever want to work with someone who doesn't want to work with me again, and I doesn't want to work with the whole me. Because guess what? I struggle with mental health.
Right.
That is a fact. You know when I struggle the most with my mental health? When someone is unwilling to see the humanity of a person who struggles with their mental health.
Okay.
Right? So it's a part of, I don't want someone who's going to have expectations of me that I can't meet, because guess who that sucks for?
For both
everyone.
Of you.
Right, exactly.
But I want to push back a little bit because, and it may be also, I mean, you're a millennial and I'm Generation X, so, and you're 33. So we have 20 years apart. So part of me feels like it's work. It's work for a reason. It's, this whole sense of building a community and a culture, and, I think it's all great. But at the end of the day, it's a job, and you get paid to do a job, and there are certain responsibilities. So if you feel like the employer, says, well, maybe we can't give Kristin this project or whatnot because, I think is good in terms of maybe we need to make sure she has someone to work with, or we check in with her more. But at the same time, I'm also feeling like, is that really the responsibility of the employer? Because they're a business and they got to make money and they need employees who would work. So I sort of feel like I understand, and I've dealt with people who have had, issues, and I've had employees who, what I say is this: everybody has a different size plate of what they can handle. Some people have a butter dish, some people will have a salad dish, some people could have a dinner dish, some people could have a serving platter, and some people like me could have 5 industrial-sized trays linked together and, can handle that. So I do think, yes, in some ways, the employers want you to be successful. I mean, because if you're successful, they're successful. So I do agree that you have to understand sort of what plate they can handle and check in and say, how is this too much? Do you need help? But I also think it's partly the responsibility of the employee to go back and say, as opposed to like when I go and they don't have it done, it's not done on the deadline, is to also say, I need help. Oh, and that's also not happening.
Yeah, no, I think it is happening.
Oh, you do? You do. Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, look at what I've gotten done this year.
Right, but you've also it's been a very...
Should it not be hard?
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, I absolutely, I'm a big, I'm very introspective, and I would probably say that I'm what you call a very high functioning depressed person. Yeah. And to most people, they would not think that I'm depressed. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a generally happy person. Like, I don't walk around with a smile on my face all the time, but I'm very high functioning. But I think that the idea of people worrying, thinking that about your mental health, and no, I don't think that.
I've gotten more clients from my transparency about my mental health than anything, Sarah. Direct outreach. People saying, I thought I wanted to work with you, now I know I want to work with you.
Okay.
And I share that as of course that's not going to be true for everyone.
Right.
And I have a lot of privilege with my mental illness that I'd love to highlight.
Okay.
One is that I'm delightful to be around, even when I'm in the depths of a depressive episode. When I post that I'm staring into the void, guess who really enjoyed my company in the 4 days prior when the void was calling? Everyone, right?
But is that because you're trying to cover it up and not really show?
It's because of what I'm able to do in a depressive episode. And it's not a covering up. I mean, it's just my personality is a happy, cheerful personality. And I would say that's a privilege, that we could, so your industrial plates are a privilege. My cheerful disposition is a privilege. For the right boss, someone would rather have the industrial plates.
Right.
And for the right boss, someone would rather have the cheerful disposition.
Right.
And I think that that's relevant. And another privilege that I have is a system. Now, maybe I should do a better job in my posts of highlighting the fact that when I climb out, it's not me on a ladder by myself. It never is. I mean, my mom, who is my model for how to be a functioning person struggling with mental health, I never stop being good to the people who are around me, to the extent that I'm able to. And what that looks like is plates that are dropped. Of course, there are plates that are dropped. But
sometimes it feels really good to just, when you break a plate.
But the triage behind that is a lot of people with brooms and dustpans, not just me.
Right.
And it's the relational health that I'm able to build and cultivate when I'm well. So I share it just to say there's no part of me that thinks the path that I'm taking is for everyone. But the harm mitigation of someone who might opt out of the sort of work I'm doing at the scale that I'm doing it because they suffer from anxiety or depression, I think the risk there is so much higher than that I might lose a client or two. So how many women, especially women of young who have young kids, right? So they have that multiplicity of, I have a 2-year-old who always needs me, and I suffer from anxiety, and I'm, this language of high functioning depressive where I can get work done, but at what cost?
And then also they're expected to work full, right?
Right. So the people with those layers, and I know a lot of them, who opt out of leadership, who opt out of public facing roles, because they're afraid of what happens when they disappoint everyone.
Okay.
Right? And I'm not anymore.
Right.
Because I will disappoint you.
Right.
It's what I'm best at, and I think it's what all of us as humans are best at, is being human. Right? Is trying, maybe shooting too high, failing, and then saying to people like, I hope you still love me anyway.
Okay. But I want to address 2 things. So one is we've talked, but we've never met. It's very interesting that you think that you're a very cheerful person, because based on what I thought and what I thought, I would say that you are somebody who looks at the glass half empty, because a lot of what you post and everything is about what you don't have, what you didn't achieve, what you didn't accomplish. And as opposed to what I would think is, look at all that she's done. I mean, and look at, I mean, yes, okay, I did think for the Together Stronger
For the Family
Together,
and Friends Fund.
right, you set your bar very, very high, where you gave yourself this goal of $1 million in a very short period
like
of time.
2 weeks.
And I was just like, okay, that's a very, very lofty goal, but, you know, you didn't hit it, obviously, and you looked at that like that was a tremendous failure. But the thing is, you raised over
what's wrong with the word failure, right? So I think that's the piece that is what I'm trying to prove, is that you can be positive and fail.
Well, see,
right?
we use the wrong words, because when you say your privilege of having I don't think it's a privilege that you can do things. I think that's more that's what you're born. I mean, that's your grit, that's your determination. That's not a privilege.
It is a privilege that I am a woman who presents how people like women to present. That is a privilege.
Wait,
it doesn't mean I haven't learned it.
Meaning that you it's a privilege that you could be the type of woman
that I can navigate spaces in ways that people like women to navigate spaces.
So you mean you stay in a safe area? I don't understand. Explain to me what you mean.
Okay, so in Fort Wayne, as an example, within this community, I can navigate boardrooms,
right,
because I have a law degree and because I can speak that language.
Right.
I can navigate nonprofit spaces because I've worked in nonprofits. I was raised in nonprofits. I can navigate funding spaces. I've been a funder, and I do all of this in a way that, for the most part, especially prior to this year, is very palatable. Okay. I'm not abrasive. I'm not argumentative. I'm a people pleaser, and these are things that are both learned, but the ability to do them. For example, the ability to respectfully dissent is something that I can do much more easily because I'm likable. In the same way that if you took a black woman who her dissent by definition is going to, in white culture, is going to put her in the angry black woman, confrontational black woman space. Similarly, if you have someone who's not sanguine all the time, who doesn't come into the office with a smile, who you're not sure likes you, right? We call it today like resting bitchy face. If you have someone who has that RBF and they dissent, oh, well, of course she dissented, right? Of course she dissented. She's always difficult. She's always argumentative. She never smiles. And I think it's a privilege because some people could perform it perfectly and not pass, right? If you decided to just start smiling exclusively, would that necessarily work for you in the same way that it works for me if you're performing it versus something that comes naturally to me? I say it in the context of mental health because I've learned to fake it. I've learned, to sort of exist as this woman, and I understand that a part of that has to do with body privilege. A part of it has to do with the fact that I'm pretty enough, that I have a natural charisma, which is why I moved towards music. These are things that don't, make me a better or worse business person, but make it easier for me to do business in the way that I do business.
And is that wrong?
Gosh, no. But how I use it, there's a real hinge there, right? Do I use that for personal allurement? Do I use it to make myself richer? Do I use it to navigate white spaces to my own advantage? Or do I use it to disrupt? And do I use it to bring other people to the table? And then do I use it to place my body between those other people at the table when they're never going to be able to do the things that I do the way that I do them for various reasons?
But do you think it has to be an either or?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I do, because I have one life. And because there are people, and there are very, very urgent needs right now where me playing the status quo isn't just perpetuating imperfect things, it's creating harm. And I think that a part of the language that probably feels negative to a white audience, that I will tell you doesn't feel negative to my audience that isn't white, is the sense that we have more work to do as white people. And it is either or work. Because what happens in this city, and in every city I've lived in, is that we do the hard conversations. We force people of color and marginalized people groups to have the tough conversations, and then we turn it into dinner table talk when we're back in white rooms.
But I'm going to push back. Do you really think we're really having the hard conversations? I would say no.
I know that I have been having the hard conversations constantly this year.
But I'm talking about on a community-wide level.
Especially behind closed doors, and that's the reason why it is an either or, is that I've no longer asked behind closed doors because I don't let it be dinner table conversation.
Well, I think also in some ways, change is very hard.
Yeah.
And people do not like to change. So like when I was in business school and we had to do this group exercise, and I have a tendency, I can see immediately what we need to do and jump right in. So I decided, and this was time, we had to sit back, and I was going to let them figure it out. And so I sat there, and I was sat there, and we had about 5 minutes left. And I was like, all right, and I needed to get everybody to get up because we needed to physically, in order to solve this puzzle, I needed to put people, just to get people to get up and out of their seats took 3 minutes. So we had 2 minutes. And the professor, when we came back and we did it, and then I wanted to go through it one more time because I knew we got one question right but not the other. And so at the end, and of course they were like, no, we went through it, Of course we got one right and one wrong. But when we were talking about it, and I said to the professor that I had to fight to get people just to get up, and she said, oh yeah, no, once people are seated, they're not moving. They set up their space, they got their comfort zone. And so I think that if you can't get people to get up and physically move, to get them to get up and change the way that they do things and constantly push them on it. Maybe they're not going as fast as you would like, or, making the change as quickly. So maybe, and I think that for some, I think that you, right, I don't know, but my impression was you really were in their face. I mean, you called people out on things, and I think that made it very hard for them. And so then they really retreated even more because I think you set a very high expectation of what you want people to do and to accomplish in a very quick time, instead of sort of knowing that, because the things you are tackling are not, you're tackling racism, mental health, equity, the whole idea of the issues for women, being, and this whole idea of being authentic and being real, and these are, and for women especially, these are issues. So I don't know why you would think, it's sort of like Weight Watchers used to have this saying, you didn't put on 40 pounds in a weekend. Why do you expect to take off 40 pounds in a weekend? And that's some of what I think is maybe that if you push too hard, then you're not going to get the response that you want.
And I was raised in the South, right? I was raised that honey is going to attract more bees than vinegar. I get it.
Or a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
I know. I get it. Guess how many white women are being the honey in our community? All of them, for the most part. We don't need another person bringing honey, and honey comes naturally to me. When you said at the beginning, I'm taking on these giant tasks and putting a giant pressure on myself, I'm unlearning the ways that white women navigate the cis hetero patriarchy because I think that we are all called to unlearn that as much as we can. And I am not responsible for anyone else's pace, but I am responsible for my own pace. And what I refuse to do, and if people see this as an attack on them, and I have never called someone out without a very constructive framework for what I'm calling out.
And also the people you called out were local officials. And when you're a public official, you need to accept that that's part of your job.
And I understand litigation barriers as much as anyone.
Right, you're an attorney, right, exactly.
And what's ironic, Sarah, is that I'm nobody. I'm literally nobody. I've been in Fort Wayne for 5.5 years. I'm an attorney who's never practiced law. I will not run for public office. My student loan debt is big enough that I have no actual spending power. And for some reason, people care what I say, right? So I say, blank public official, I wish you would say something. And guess how many emails I get?
Right.
From people that matter.
Right.
5, 10.
Right.
What that tells me isn't be quiet.
Right.
And even though I would like for that to be the message I'm hearing, I would like to think, okay, all these people are telling me how I did it wrong, how I could have done it better. They're making excuses privately that they can't make publicly. This is good. I'll do the behind the scenes stuff. But guess who they don't send emails to?
Well, to you, everybody. I mean, that's
But the people that are most closely affected by it. So the protesters who were tear gassed can post the same thing on Facebook as I post, and you better believe that handlers for public officials aren't reaching out to them, because that's where we are in Fort Wayne. The people with power care what I think. The people with power don't necessarily care what the people most closely affected by the problems think. And where I see that as a responsibility to not be sweet isn't because they care what I think, right? It isn't because they respond when I talk. It's because they don't respond when the people who were directly harmed talk. So it feels like a moral obligation.
So do you feel that your obligation is to speak for those who don't have voices?
Well, they have voices, right?
Okay.
It's to say the thing that white culture tells me is impolite to say, and that the cultures of marginalized people tell me is urgently important to say. Okay. That is all I try to do. And I ask regularly. I mean, I'm not rogue. I'm not rogue. Every single post I've ever made has been approved and refined by a council of leaders who are most closely affected by these problems. So that when I hear the pushback, if the majority of and I will tell you too, and I don't exploit these opportunities because of the risk of re-traumatization, I have gotten it wrong, where I've had, BIPOC leaders reach out to me and say, whoa, that wasn't right.
BIPOC leaders are
Black leaders, Indigenous leaders, or other leaders of color in our community who've called foul on things I've said and done. And I'm so grateful they do, and I don't talk about those things because...
What did they... Can you just give me an example of something?
Yeah. Let's see. Anytime that I am called in by a leader in social justice. Okay. My instinct is defensiveness. It's a very normal white lady instinct.
Is it? See, yeah. I think to me, some of these things that you're saying that are very normal and a white woman, I would absolutely disagree with you. And I mean, it may be, I don't think
for you personally, or for a culture of, you don't think that white women are defensive when called out on harm?
I don't think that I think they're defensive for the wrong reasons, which is that they take it personally.
Yes.
And I have tremendous issue with women who we are so worried about what other people think and how they're perceived, and so concerned about how they're going to be judged and if they're going to be liked. And absolutely.
So then that's what I'm doing.
But I also don't necessarily think that is societal. I mean, okay, it's partly societal. I also think it's what women do to themselves and what women do to other women.
Well, but so taking it personally is the sort of defensiveness I'm talking about.
Okay.
So we're on the same page.
But why?
Right?
Okay, but why would you take it personally if it's something? If they want to talk to you about something in the social justice area?
Because they're calling me in about something I did.
Okay.
So again, I'm not saying that I ought to take it personally.
Right, but why? Okay, but your initial inclination is it's personal, right?
Right.
Why? As opposed to...
This is what I'm saying. I'm saying it oughtn't to be.
Oh, okay.
It oughtn't to be, and it is. So this is an example of how white people in this space perpetuate harm. I do something wrong.
Right.
Someone says that's wrong.
Right.
I take it personally, which is wrong.
Right.
Then they have to tell me, you're taking it personally, you're making this about you, it was never about you.
Right.
And then there's a varying degree of time between when they tell me that and when I am able to come off of my defensive white lady crying, this is all about me moment.
Right.
Let's say that's a day, 10 days, a month.
Okay.
Perpetuating harm during that time, right, where this person is trying to engage with an outspoken public ally. So that's all I'm saying, is that I get it wrong, but it would be inappropriate for me to bring that leader in and say, let's let this be a learning opportunity for a bunch of other people that are like me, when what I can do is just do better. I mean, that's my goal.
See, but I think you're putting so much of it, all of this on you, where it's not you. Because, see, I think, okay, so are you able to take constructive criticism?
Yeah.
So constructive criticism is the idea that, like I always say when I'm giving criticism to people, I'm not attacking you, I'm attacking the work. Now, I am not someone, when they give criticism and things, because I'm not someone who's, I've learned, I got to tell you something good, then I can tell you something bad, then I can tell you something good. But if you're working and I'm paying you, I sort of feel like this is a job, and I do it in a nice way. I'm talking about the work and my expectations of the work.
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing you or attacking you, so you should not take that personally, but so many people do. So I don't think that that's, I mean, I don't know where in the zeitgeist this all comes from, of these expectations and women so worried about what other women think, and, you know, and why people take certain things personally. You know, I don't know where that's from, but I don't think that that's necessarily, you should take these things personally at all.
I've already said 4 times that I don't want to take them personally, right?
But you do.
And so it's a repetition. And that would be the only other thing I'd want to cover, is that a part of the act of public questioning and critique is to help us as a culture, right? As a city culture, as a hyper-local Fort Wayne culture, get better at getting criticized. I need to improve on it. Systems need to improve on it. And what I think is urgently important about that is, guess what the only way to get better at it is, and you already alluded to it. Repetition.
Right.
My defensive, my knee-jerk, I mean, I used to, gosh, at the beginning of this, I would get like a troll that would message me and be like, you know, you're a, you're whatever, all the things that trolls say. And I wouldn't sleep for 3 days.
Okay, but here's
But I don't anymore, because I've gotten enough that I'm getting better at it.
Okay, you've gotten enough. So, but my whole point is, so why do you even care what this, you don't even know this person. You don't even, see, this is the whole thing. Like when I had Tamira Kelly on the program, and she also talked about that she had struggles with mental illness, and really affected her, and because she didn't forgive, right? And she was talking about how she manifested all this anger and energy about someone that did her wrong and disliked her, and then they were just going off and living their lives, and, you know, she needed to forgive and stuff. And I don't understand why people care about, you don't even know this person. You don't even know who they are. You don't know their background. I mean, I look at it if you respect someone or not. And there's so few people that I truly, truly respect, you know, and know that they genuinely 100% care for me with no agenda of their own. So if it's someone that I don't know, and I have no idea who they are and what their background is, and if they value the same things I value, why would you even give that the time of day?
I care the absolute most, because I didn't choose. Being some sort of authority or proxy or thought leader locally on race, ask me what my qualifications for that are.
I don't need to ask you. No.
0.
So you're wrong.
No. I'm not wrong. I'm not. Because I don't have a degree. I do not have a lived experience. So if someone who is from the class of people that I have been, you know, that I have stepped into a proxy, criticizes me, I better care, or I better get the F out. It's not about personal, it's about, can I do the work well, and can I do the work responsibly?
But when you say...
A troll is very different.
Okay, but when you say, you know, when you say, why are you selected as a thought leader? Why do people care what you say? Why you have no qualifications? I would argue you absolutely have qualifications. First of all, you went to law school. You have a training and a knowledge about how to debate, how to present both sides of an issue, how to look at things so that maybe the nuances, that it's not just black and white, that we live in the gray, in interpretation. You understand perception.
I have skills.
Okay, no. Okay, you have, you have skills and talents. Yes, you have skills, but you admitted like your talent, and you know, they've proven that for the best CEOs, the most successful CEOs are not those that went to Harvard and got a straight A's and have an MBA and a PhD. You know who it is? It's the people who have likability, the people who are the cheerleaders, the people who can corral and build consensus. They are the most successful. So you have those talents combined with skills. Now, you have a law degree. To me, not very many people have law degrees. So that makes you qualified for a tremendous amount. Now, hold on. You also, maybe you didn't reach the bell in what you set for yourself, but you have a track record. You know, you didn't set up $1 million, but you earned over $250,000. And what I saw was you got little kids setting up bake sales, and you garnered.
I am not at all saying I'm not qualified as a knock against myself.
Okay, no, and I'm not, and this is not we're not a cheerleader to.
No, I know,
but then what you did with Cass Housing and how you helped them really understand how to use money and to change this. It's the philosophical understanding about nonprofits that just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean that you shouldn't make money and doesn't mean that you shouldn't use money to how you use the money that you get. Okay, so I would argue, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not a cheerleader for most people, and I don't believe a lot of people who just do a lot of talk. I'm really someone, put your money where your mouth is, and if you put yourself out in front, you are going to be, you're putting yourself out there. You better be ready for everything that's going to come at you, because if you want to live in that space, that's what's going to happen. So I beg to differ that people, you may not, see, this is what I mean. In your mind, and this is what I mean about what you set for yourself, and women do this. You said like you want to be able to be you wanted to be angry but not calcify to hatred. You wanted to have fear but not calcify to cynicism. And I was thinking to myself, these are unobtainable. How could she? And this sense, and that's what I have issues with, that women do.
But what's incredible though, and it's like I wrote in the magazine about
this book, Untamed,
about
right.
Untamed, and
yes.
What is so?
So that's by
Glennon Doyle.
Glennon Doyle. Okay, and tell me. Let's just back up a second, because so explain about the book and then this whole, because it really had a huge impact on you. So tell me a little bit about the book and why.
What matters about the book is there's this quote that like has circulated forever that on its own is like fun and kind of macabre in a way that's attractive to people, but it's like, I don't want to land in my grave perfectly kempt and full. Like I want to slide in with my hair askance, having spent out every bit of my energy. And any language that sounds like false humility isn't intended to be false humility. It's intended to show that perfection and success just aren't my goals. So striving to a better way. And it's why I joined Pond, is because Pond is striving for a better way, better growth, better marketing, better, respect.
Within the field of
the field of tech.
Right.
And that's all, is that I watch people around me get so angry that they stop being able to feel joy. Of course, if we just focused on the hardness of systemic racism, we would never feel joy.
Right.
Of course. But you need the anger. The anger drives you to action.
Sure.
And so it is appropriate to strive to use righteous anger for a good cause and to not become what people become when they ride that righteous anger too long.
Right.
And it is appropriate to want to feel the fear and do it anyway without becoming reckless with my own heart and my own health, right?
Right.
Because if you're not scared, you probably shouldn't do it. Right. But also, if you're too scared, you probably shouldn't do it, right? And so, how do you sit in that place? And more than anything, and a part of it is like, Glennon is me, and I am Glennon, and we all are to a certain extent. This idea that the walls of who we ought to be, it is not as simple as banishing them. You can't say, today I choose not to care and not care. We care, and our caring is our superpower. Our caring is like our superpower. And if I deny the care, you become what you do. So if I say, I don't care about trolls, I don't care about this naysayer, I don't care I don't care that CEO that I publicly called out won't speak to me anymore, I don't care, that muscle atrophies. And so it becomes difficult for me to block off a part of myself that's very natural and then to use it only for good.
Okay, but I would push back and say, aren't you just misdirecting what you care about? Because I would say to you,
for me.
Don't put your energy there. And I agree with you. Everybody, this mediocrity makes me crazy, okay? But at the same time, as a journalist, there are a lot of times where I have to say, it's good enough. Is it the best we could do? No. But under the circumstances and my deadline, and I don't have the lack of resources, and I don't have anything, it's good enough.
And that is exactly what I'm trying to live. And
You're trying to live the good enough?
Yeah.
But I think to me, reading everything, it's never going to be good enough.
But
for
will it ever have been good enough if
To
you
whom?
weren't shooting for something better?
Sure, right. But okay, so maybe it's the nuances where you're saying that you have to aspire to something, and you can't just accept this mediocrity. But I feel, yes, I agree with you, and I do this every day, and I push back, and I'm also considered an outsider to Fort Wayne. I mean, I've only lived here a year and a half. I've been coming here for 3 years prior, but and certain things that I see in the community, and yes, and what I'm up against, and I agree with you, but what you aspire to, at where on the mountain, like perfection is the summit, and some people only make it to Mount Everest. They only make it to the first camp or the second camp. I mean, that's why there are places to get to the summit.
Yeah.
I just think that personally, what I think of you is, you just have forgotten the viability that you just climbed 5,000 or whatever it is to get to the first summit, because all you're thinking is, if I don't get to this, if I don't get to that summit, I failed.
I use the word, so I'm a fundraiser.
Right.
By trade. I'm also a lawyer.
Right.
By trade. So to anyone watching that might be worried about what you're expressing that I don't celebrate, every word I use is intentional. Every word I post on social media is intentional. And fundraisers know that people don't donate when you're at the summit.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
It's why the last 500,000 or 50,000, depending on the size of the capital campaign, is the hardest. Oh, well, my gosh, they're almost there. Good luck to them. So a part of my language is very intentional.
Okay.
And I am a good fundraiser. So the $1 million goal was very strategic. The deadline for July 4th was very strategic because I needed to fail, right? I needed to fail as a white woman to show white people perfection isn't expected of you to start doing better in the racial justice space. You don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to cross the finish line. That was strategic.
Okay.
The subsequent, here's the targets we're not hitting, they motivate people to action.
Okay.
Every time I post, and it doesn't make it insincere, because in fact, $1 million was a strategic number that we must meet, and we will meet, because there is $1 billion of deal flow from BIPOC businesses in Northeast Indiana.
Right, and they talk about in how much dollars they control.
Yeah.
Just like women. I mean, women. Every 3 of every 4 household dollars, the decision maker is women. And,
So if
women aren't appreciated for that either.
If I started with $250,000,
right.
A, we wouldn't have gotten there.
Right.
Because that's just how these things work.
Right.
But B, that would have been an insult to the amount of deal flow that there
But I
actually
also
is.
thought it was a little hubris.
Yeah.
And I don't, again, I didn't know you anything, and I'm just watching this, and I'm thinking, well, who is she? And is she insulting all of these other nonprofit organizations who are trying to raise money? And I just sort of thought, what kind of bravado is that she thinks in 2 weeks she's going to raise $1 million when they're trying, whatever their campaigns are and stuff. So I did think, well, this is a little hubris of her, but I was really impressed. So then when you said that you failed, see, I don't think that you failed. I just think but look at what she achieved. See,
and what we achieved. I didn't raise any of it.
I'm just saying, all right. But what I also really valued was not only was it that you got people, to give, which to me, getting people to give money is a little easier than getting people to take action. And you had little kids having brownie sales, and you had even one because your son wanted to go, they were selling their toys. I mean,
Matchbox cars.
Yes, and I thought this was fabulous because so now that you put it in this way, I understand it, but I just wonder if the connection between your head and your heart, like you say, and I'm talking more also in your personal life, that I don't, professionally, I mean, some part you can't control. There's so much else that goes on if you're going to be perfect and achieve, that you can't. But in your own personal life, where you set the goals and the objectives, and when you set out that you are going to try to be, the most perfect, stay-at-home mom, and you're neglect, your kids, and because you gave them more screen time, or you're not, you don't want to play Legos for the 50th time, and that you evaluate that to yourself as you failed or you're not good enough. So I wasn't really looking at this, I guess, in a way, and I guess it is true, and you're a perfect example
And I'm integrated.
there is no, this work-life balance is BS because we don't have it anymore, and especially we saw it
After
over the
COVID,
last year, and also with technology. So, you don't have that.
And working for yourself.
A lot, and working for yourself, forget it, and so, but I looked at it more, and it's interesting because it's just, perception is reality, and I just looked at it more of like, what she's expecting, and this is women, and I don't know why. Where does this come from? This sense of like, I have to be perfect because.
Yeah, well, and it's almost. I mean, I think that there's a very Midwestern plus bootstrap plus meritocracy sense that everything we must earn. Right. And of course you can go to church and hear that you're worthy no matter what. And then every part of society tells you that's not true.
Right. Well, because we have said we want to believe that we're in a meritocracy, but we have proven time and time again that we're not, because certain, like when you see, why did that person get that job? Oh, because they knew somebody and somebody or whatever. Or no, I am one of these people, which is why I had to leave corporate America, because I didn't play the game. I believe, let my work show.
Right.
I wanted, what I accomplished, what I did, what I achieved. But I didn't play the game. I'm not like, if I was in a meeting with my boss and their boss, and their boss would ask what I thought about something that we were going to do, and I didn't agree with my boss, normally what you're supposed to do is agree with your boss. Right. And I didn't. And I would say, well, you asked me what I think, I'm going to tell you. I don't go around and freely tell people what I think.
Right.
Well, sometimes I do. But, so I think that it is a little bit about where, this, I don't know where it comes from, and this fear, and I just don't, I don't know. And I don't know why women, and I do know in some sense.
Yeah.
I think women are women's worst critics, and we are, it's, I said to you before we started, I said, if you heard your friend say some of the things that you say, and the things that you set forth for yourself to accomplish, and you heard, what would you say to them?
Well, they do.
And what do you say?
I mean, what we commiserate on, and it will, if I ever leave Fort Wayne, it will be a massive surprise, because my circle of women here is like chef's kiss.
Right,
amazing.
you say that you have 100 dear friends, which I really want to meet all these women, because I want them, because I always said, if I can count my and the real true friend for me is the person who will wake up at 4 a.m., take you to the airport, and never mention it.
Yes.
Like never, like, you remember that time, or
right.
Bitch about it, or complain to someone else. She called me, and who does she think she is? Then I would go right. I want to meet these women, because I'm not a big rah rah cheerleader of women.
Yeah. My airport friends are amazing, and what we talk about, and this is what's I think so fun about being a woman in 2021, is analyzing a problem and pointing out all of the goalposts that I'm never going to hit isn't necessarily languishing. In a sense, it's a philosophical exercise, right? If you don't acknowledge the reasons you feel like a failure, you can't overcome them and decide you're not a failure. So a lot of my conversations with women in these days with my closest girlfriends are like, here's a great example of these sort of dualities. I want to look better in a bathing suit. I also want to fully embrace body positivity. But I understand that like the extremes of body positivity might have some negative implications for my health. But wait, I think I've just been taught that, and health actually isn't related to your BMI or your body size. And why am I so scared of being fat? And oh my gosh, I have fat phobia. This is something that I want to be better at. I need to work on this. Okay, I'm still feeling this pull back to should I eat less? Should I exercise more? I want to analyze the root of that. Is that external or is it internal? Do I want to work out more because I feel better, or do I want to work out more because I want to look better? Okay, let me get to a place where I want to work out more because I want to feel better, and know that I'm doing that from a place of health and not a place of misogyny. These are like the most in-depth, robust conversations, and they ought to be, because these conversations are complex and multi-layered.
But they're exhausting. I mean,
but it's life-giving. I don't find it exhausting.
What I would push back to these women and say, why do you want to look better in a bathing suit? And most people will say, because they're so concerned about what other people think about how they look in that bathing suit. I always say to people, stop worrying about what other people think about in the bathing suit, because everybody is so worried.
But if it was a switch, we all would have switched it.
No, because but wait, because women, this is my thing. everybody is so busy thinking about what everybody's thinking about them that nobody is really thinking about anybody else. So don't care.
But what's incredible is that we're not. I mean, in the context of these societal conversations, because that's really what it is it's not that I care what someone thinks about me. It's that I care about the societal implications of not showing up how people expect me to, which is a way of saying I care about what other people think about me, because there are repercussions for how people think about you, right? You might not get a job if you show up in Fort Wayne and the person interviewing you is fat phobic and hasn't done the work to know that they are.
Yeah.
So the real world consequences of sort of these simple things that you could say just don't care, well, I can just not care because I have a body that's acceptable in America. I can't then ask my friend who doesn't present like a size 6 to just not care, because she might not get a job because people see her as fat. She might not get a job because she has brown skin and type 4A hair and hasn't put it in a European style.
I don't mean that she shouldn't care. I just mean that you shouldn't care that you define what you do and how you behave and how you live and how you react because of what you think society expects of you or puts on you. Or
it is, I think, and again, this is my approach and it's not everyone's approach, and it works for me. And I don't want to skid into my grave comfortable and feeling like I haven't had a stressful thought recently. I want to go to my grave having my last thought be, how can I improve the world? And that includes the fact that it's my responsibility as someone with body privilege, able privilege, race privilege, age privilege temporarily.
Right. That's a whole nother one.
Yeah, we could talk about the reality of disappearing in middle age as a woman, right?
Oh yeah, no, I joke. I'm past my expiration.
Right, and
yeah.
so
in so many ways.
I'll be there soon, right?
Well, you got a while.
But well, I mean, it depends on how much sun. You know, there's all these things that really do matter, and I while I have the privileges I do have, I want to bear some of the responsibility of doing the mental work, because right now the mental work of, to use the example again, the mental work of fat phobia is all on people who present with fat bodies, right? If that whole burden is theirs and I can just decide that in the meritocracy they could just work harder, come on, like that's not good enough. And if all the burden of racism is on Black and brown people, like I have a responsibility, and I enjoy the work because it brings me closer to people that aren't just like me.
Right.
And what a gift. I mean, it's the greatest, it's the point of life, I think, is to connect with people who don't see things the same way as I do. And I'm so grateful for all the perspective you gave me today. If I sound defensive.
No, I don't. I find this a very lively and conversation, and I think you are taking gigantic steps. And what it tells me is that you and I have to continue this conversation and maybe even add some more women to this, because I think it is an important conversation to have, and it goes into so many avenues and everything. And so, I want to make sure we do that and continue it, because I think but I also think that sometimes you don't need to take the giant leap. You could just take a little baby step.
I have lots of fun.
No, I'm glad.
I'm going to start documenting it more.
I'm going to tell you that I'm really glad, because from what I saw and how I just felt that all you do is talk about what you don't have and what you don't do, and the glass is half empty. I really thought about it, and I said, when you first sat down and you said that you feel that you're a very, happy, engaging, joyful person, I would be like, well, we need to see that, because that would be, and then layer on that what you're doing, and that you really enjoy it, and that you're not looking at these as like you're pushing it up and not getting anywhere. And so that's very comforting for me. And I hope you will come back. But speaking about your grave, so unfortunately, at the end of each And Good Company program, I ask guests the same 12 questions that were popularized by novelist Marcel Proust in a Victorian parlor game. And what is your favorite word?
And.
What is your least favorite word?
But.
I thought or, maybe. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
People being themselves.
What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
That's the way things have always been done.
What sound or noise do you love?
My 2-year-old laughing. It's pretty cute.
What sound or noise do you hate?
my 2-year-old or 4-year-old saying, Mom!
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Broadway star.
What profession other than your own would you not like to do?
Lawyer.
Well, you've done that. So.
Be a real one. Be a real lawyer.
Okay.
No interest.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
With Family and Friends Fund.
Who, living or dead, would you most like to have a conversation with?
I would love to have a conversation with Angela Davis,
And she is,
Black activist.
and that was it. She was in the civil rights, right? Yeah.
She's still alive, I think.
Oh, so then you could make that happen.
I'd love to.
And you're very engaging. You should personable. Let's make it happen. How would you like to die?
Doing what ignites me.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Thanks for showing up.
Well, I thank you for showing up. And I truthfully was very excited to have
Me
this
too.
conversation with you because I really enjoyed when I have had a chance to talk to you but following you and seeing what you're doing. And I hope you will come back and we'll bring some more women and we're going to continue these conversations. And this is the whole reason I started this program, is because these are the type of conversations I want to have, not just with your friends, but in a way where we can engage and question and push each other to have these conversations and ask the questions that need to be asked. So
Well,
thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And you can learn more about And Good Company and all the other great conversations we have had at andgoodcompany.info. And we look forward to next week when you can again enjoy a seat at the table for great conversation and good company.